Senior living operators face a complex set of challenges. How do you stay ahead of the pack? Listen in to From Leads to Leases, a CCR Growth podcast for expert solutions that transform problems into opportunities. And maybe someday soon you'll partner with us to generate $1.5 million and up in additional revenue per community in just 12 months. Welcome back to From Leads to Leases, where we explore the ever-evolving world of senior living, bringing you insights straight from the heart of the industry. I'm your host, Jerry Vinci, CEO of CCR Growth, and today we're diving into a fascinating discussion about the art of creating unique living experiences in assisted living. Joining us is Angela DeWood, Deputy Executive Director at Carnegie East House in New York City. Angela brings a wealth of experience and a deep commitment to enhancing the lives of older adults. Her journey through nearly every leadership role in senior care, coupled with her global insights and dedication to community engagement, makes her a standout voice in the field. Today, we'll uncover how Carnegie East House, a not-for-profit community, is redefining enriched housing for older adults, offering more than just care. They're creating a lifestyle right in the heart of the city that never sleeps. So welcome, Angela, and thank you for joining us on the show.
Hi, Jerry. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. This is not your typical scenario. We've never had a chat with a not-for-profit organization in senior living yet, and given the fact that you're in the middle of New York City too, I think there's just a lot of unique experiences that we're going to uncover during this episode. So, to kick things off, I really just wanted for you to share a little bit about your journey into the elder care field. Like, what motivated you to dedicate your career to this sector?
Sure, that's definitely an important part of it, because you do have to be dedicated.
Sure.
So, when I was younger, I always felt drawn to older adults for, whatever reason. I was constantly going to volunteer at the local nursing homes and helping the older ladies on my block cleaning or, cleaning up their lawns and things like that. So I just always kind of felt a connection to much older adults. And I think that, the sage and wisdom of, their life experiences is truly unmatched. And I think for me, I was very, very lucky early on to have the opportunity to teach exercise classes to seniors when I was in college. And that sort of changed the trajectory of how I wanted to dedicate my life and my career. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey. Having lost my mom at a young age when I was in high school, that changed the trajectory of my life, and I think really gave me a lot of motivation to want to dedicate my career and my life to helping people in need. And I knew that that's something that I wanted to do, because unfortunately I wasn't able to do it, for my own mom. So I get a lot of personal satisfaction from, this career path. Absolutely. It means a lot to me to, be in a community surrounded by residents who are treated like family. It's a pretty special thing.
It's interesting too that you said that you kind of got your start with fitness classes. That was actually how my wife got into the senior living industry as well. She used to be a Zumba instructor. So so she would teach class. She would go in and teach classes, and I think she also did some water aerobics and things like that with some of the older adults. So but she fell in love with the industry because of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That it was so much fun teaching, different Tai Chi classes, strength and balance. And I got really into a program for a boxing program for people with Parkinson's. That was really rewarding. And yeah, ever since, I was in my late teens, early 20s, it's just been something, a group of people that I absolutely adored working with. And just kind of worked my way into the industry and, like you said, in different department head positions and, and now here I am in New York City at the only nonprofit assisted enriched housing community in the city. So it's very unique in that sense.
That's excellent. So reading your bio on the Carnegie East website too, I noticed that you have a rich background of international experiences, which is not something I can say for a lot of people. So how have travels influenced your approach to senior care?
That's a really good question. I've always kind of landed on that travel has taught me tolerance of ambiguity, sort of, openness to different interpretations of the way things are, the way people live. And I think that those worldly experiences have really translated seamlessly into becoming a New Yorker, because certainly all walks of life exist here. And
Yeah.
so I think that really traveling around the world has prepared me to live and, help run a community in the middle of New York City. And, I think that again, like having my life early on, the trajectory of it changing with my own family, I probably would never have left my own mother's side had she not passed. But ha- being that she did, I was able to travel and kind of do my own thing and experience all of these different countries before I turned 40. And now I feel that I haven't really missed out on a lot of opportunities. I've done a lot and experienced a lot. So I feel very comfortable sort of, really focusing on my career now that I'm almost turning 40, and it means a lot to me.
We're like on opposite sides. So I grew up very close to New York City, so I'm very familiar with the area, and I know what you mean by it being somewhat of a melting pot. My brother-in-law, he still works in the city every day. He drives into Manhattan, so it's something that I'm familiar with. And but I kind of have spent the last couple decades working, and now I find myself like wishing I had spent more time traveling because of the importance of like getting more of a worldly view on things. So like my wife and I, that's been a big goal of ours. Like this year we're traveling to Italy for the first time, and we're just trying like every year to pick a different country and to go experience another culture and spend a significant amount of time there. I think that's a great experience for everyone.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, to me, there's no greater joy in life than, visiting other countries and seeing how other cultures move, and, the food, and just it's really a beautiful part of life. And,
Hmm.
being in New York, our community really truly reflects all walks of life. So our residents here have life experiences that, I mean, it would just blow your mind. The other day, one of our 101-year-old residents, who I absolutely adore, was telling me where she was when Pearl Harbor happened.
Wow.
She remembers it like it was yesterday, and I just find that so fascinating. And it's a really wonderful opportunity to share life experiences here.
I just interviewed a photographer. He's that's kind of his thing is storytelling, right? So I mean, the numbers of older adults he's photographed and the stories that he's heard. I mean, he's got like a story for everything, and I'm just like, my God, the amount that he's heard and absorbed just from these experiences that he's had. I can imagine, being in the location you're at with some of the unique experiences people have had,
Oh
and
yeah.
then to meet some centenarians and things like that who've been around as long as they have. I mean, I think about the fact that like, I'm 45, so my generation is the last generation to grow up without the internet. Like
Mhm.
my son, he's 11, like he doesn't know what that's like, and
I
he can't
know.
even fathom like I tell him, yeah, the phones used to be attached to the wall and you didn't have a cord. Let's see. He's like, what do you mean? Like he doesn't even get it. So
I know,
it's
calling
it's
the
crazy.
pound sign, the hashtag sign,
Yeah.
that's something now.
Yeah. I mean, we literally had a rotary phone in the kitchen. I'm just like, man, just technology is amazing how fast it moves. So,
I know, I know.
yeah.
No, we did too. I think I was 13 when the internet came out, so I had a full life experience pre-internet, and I'm
Yeah.
thankful for that.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Me too, for sure. So now you find yourself as the deputy executive director at Carnegie East House, which brings a unique flair to this industry. In that the community is part of the rich urban life in Manhattan, and it's a not-for-profit. So can you give us an overview of how Carnegie East House integrates that vibrant energy of New York City into the daily lives of its residents?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's really not that difficult considering our location, because we're right on Second Avenue and 96th Street on the Upper East Side.
Hmm.
So we're in a bustling area with tons of connections to transportation. There's a brand new Q train right out in front of us, which connects to many different popular areas in the city. And given that we have all walks of life that live here, I think that, adding in activities and programming that residents were previously doing before they moved in here and just kind of bringing it into our house, um, has been really successful for us. So just using our residents as a resource for things that they want to be involved in is kind of our way that we like to integrate, outside into inside, essentially.
I just did an episode about that actually when I was talking about objections that prospects might have before moving into a community. And one of the things that came up was, if a community doesn't have all of the things that somebody might want. So say somebody is an avid gardener or they're like a master chess player or something, and the community doesn't have programs to support that. I mean, is that something that typically the community directors would get together and say, hey, how can we accommodate this need? Will you create something that didn't previously exist to accommodate the needs of that resident? I was going to say maybe that's not just a Carnegie East question. Maybe that's just the industry in general. I mean, how likely are our communities to create programs specifically for a resident?
Well, I think the good ones are willing and able to do that.
Yeah.
I've been in this industry for, coming up on 15 years now. And at least in Manhattan, I've worked at many, many other assisted livings. I've done consulting for, this industry for a long time. And
Mm-hmm.
in comparison, I think that we really do focus on the individual here. And, you know, we will tailor our program and we will tailor our offerings and community to what each individual resident is interested in. And I think, that being said, we have monthly meetings and the residents have their own resident committee and they have different boards and they meet, as peers and neighbors, and they discuss what they're interested in and what they would like to see. And, we as the leadership attend those meetings and we hear them and we, try to execute and follow through, with what they're looking for. And that's really important to us.
Yeah, feedback in general, I think in this industry seems to be so critical. And like you said, the good ones who are actually listening to what their residents are asking for, and they've put together committees for residents to actually have a voice, and to collectively come to you and say, hey, this is something that's not happening right now that we would all love to be part of or have as part of our community. And then for that to be a consideration, I think that's really awesome.
Our number one goal here is to keep our residents independent and thriving. So that absolutely falls in line with listening to, their opinions and what they want to see, in their
Mm-hmm.
daily lives here. That's absolutely our number one priority.
Given the location of the community too, I mean, are most of your residents coming from within the city themselves or like surrounding the suburban area? Like how do you typically acquire residents?
That's a really good question. So it's interesting. I have noticed a trend of adult children, say, myself or you, for example, moving their parents back into the city where they live. So, you'll have somebody who perhaps went to Florida when they were in their 60s, lived maybe as a snowbird for, 20, 25 years, and now they're reaching a point where they need a little bit of a higher level of care or want to be
Mm-hmm.
surrounded by family. And adult children are, it's essentially, it's a lot easier for older adults to live in urban areas because of the accessibility of hospital systems, specialists, doctors, that sort of thing. So, and that's actually touches on an interesting programming perspective of this industry. Is in New York, respite programs are becoming more and more popular. So essentially they're a short-term stay program that residents can use as a transitional opportunity to see if they like the feel of the community, or truly just as a short-term respite stay, for example, if they're in town for a procedure. So, we're right down the street from Mount Sinai, Lenox Hills, a couple blocks down. I mean, we're right in the middle of,
Yeah, it's a
very
prime
much
location.
Yeah, exactly. So we do see a lot of people in town for procedures, and we want to be able to offer, a safe environment for people to rest and recover at.
I see that a lot too. A lot of our clients are now kind of utilizing respite care as like a trial run for potential residents, and I think I think overall across our portfolio, it's well over 50% of respite care short term stays end up becoming residents. So there is something to be said about that could be another way to help people increase their occupancy numbers. If yeah.
100%. Yeah. In fact, we're at 100% right now. Every single person that we rolled out our program in January, and every single person has stayed full time. In fact, a couple is coming back from out of state after they sell their house.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's really been a great transitional opportunity for people, and we're happy to be able to offer that because it's a big commitment. It's a big change. I mean, a lot of the residents that we move in here are coming straight from home after having sold their house that they've lived in for 50 years. And I mean, I've never lived in a house for 50 years, but I've lived in an apartment for 10, and I can tell you that leaving that apartment would be a big life change for me. Um, so we try to be as accommodating as possible. We'll invite residents in for lunch, for programming activities, well before rather potential residents, well before they've, agreed or decided to actually move in, because we want the resident to make the choice for themselves. And
Yeah.
that kind of falls in line with how we do our assessments here. We like to do on-site assessments. I mean, certainly you hear a lot of times about, nurses and social workers going off-site to rehabs or hospitals to do assessments to gain sort of quick admission. But our model is a little bit different. It's important for us for the potential resident to see and feel the energy of our community, because again, it's important that they're making the decision for themselves.
Yeah, that's an important point too. I think, or a question I was thinking about is when it comes again, when we're talking about like objections to senior living in general, a lot of times there's fears that come up for prospects like loss of independence or, even like the denial of need. Like some people are just like, I'm not there yet. I don't need it. Like, what do you see most often? I mean, for the people who come in, I mean, is it difficult to get them to see the logic in making the move, or do they more lean towards, this sounds like it would be a good fit for me?
Logic is usually not the barrier. Most older adults and older New Yorkers understand the need, or understand the concept or fact that perhaps they've aged out of their walk up. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a big sort of issue that we have here. I mean, the accessibility alone of the city, not everybody lives in a doorman building with an elevator. So really just that sheer fact, I mean, people know that, hey, I can't walk up that stoop anymore. I'm going to have to make the transition, and now's the time to probably think ahead. Our program here, we're very dedicated to keeping our residents in place. We want to see our residents age in place. And our program's a little bit different in the sense where we don't have a very high level of care here. Essentially, residents have to be able to be slightly independent on their own. But what's great about our program is that our license allows us to have outside caregivers come in and actually provide care. So if somebody, needs that one-on-one, our license allows that. And that's actually very unique to our community, because most assisted livings have what's called, in New York at least, have what's called an enhanced license.
Hmm.
So that basically only enables their staff to be the ones providing care, in
Okay.
which case you're not getting the one-on-one that you probably need at some point later down the line. So I think that's really important, to knowing the questions to ask when you are looking for yourself or for a loved one, knowing the right questions to ask about the exact level of care and what the community can provide in terms of that is very important.
You were talking about the location and how important it was, just based on the fact that you have all accessibility to, hospitals and things like that. But
Mhm.
I think there's also the other component too of the location, which would be, you've created all these connections between the community and the cultural institutions of New York. Can you share more about that and those partnerships and how those enhance the lives of your residents?
Absolutely. So our main focus here is to be a community benefit organization. I mean, certainly we need to stay afloat and we have to be able to, support our staff and, all of that and just operationally. We have very strong connections with major cultural institutions in New York City, like the Alvin Ailey School for Dance. They're doing an actual semester here. They just started last week. So their students are coming in and teaching our residents. And then sort of at the end of the 12-week semester, there will be, a performance and a
Oh,
recital.
that's
And that's
so nice.
something, yeah, it's amazing. And the residents absolutely love it. So that's one, kind of partnership that we're very, very proud of and means a lot to us. And just even being in this neighborhood, I mean, New Yorkers are typically married to their neighborhoods. So, and that's no different over here on the Upper East Side. I mean, we're right down the street from the 92nd Street Y, which is a great cultural organization that offers a wide range of programming. And, we partner with them to pay for annual memberships for all of our residents so they can go and, for the exercise classes or, the ticketed events or anything virtual. So that's something that's also really important to us, that partnership. And I mean, you name it, Carnegie Hall loves to give us tickets to concerts. I mean, my best friend is a creative director for the New York Philharmonic, so we have that connection. All of the museums that are just down the street on Fifth Avenue, different advocacy groups are also really important to us to partner with. It's amazing. Being in this industry in New York City is unmatched.
Yeah, it seems like
Yeah,
there'd be an endless number of things to do. I can imagine
yeah, it's pretty great.
some of our communities, they're kind of in the middle of nowhere, so like they're lucky if they get out to, local restaurants or a theater or something like that, but
No.
there's no shortage of that in the city at all.
Well, that's a good point, and that's kind of why I think that older adults moving back to urban settings is becoming a lot more popular now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's a great approach to living out that chapter of life. I mean, I'm a city girl, I'm a New Yorker, but I definitely want to be in an urban setting when I'm an older adult. Absolutely.
Well, I think the other side of that is what you see out by me a lot is like the CCRCs that have 300, 400 apartments for rent, and they've literally built a campus. So it's almost like a college campus, right, where they have everything there. So they've
Yeah.
built their own little city within the community because there isn't one outside of the community. Like I
Yeah.
live in the central coast of California. There's really nothing here other than wineries and golf. So like outside of those two activities, there isn't a whole lot to do. But there's some amazing communities that have like everything you could possibly imagine under the sun. So
Totally. I
yeah.
know my dad lives down in Florida, so I see what they offer down there. And of course, I've seen every single documentary about, there's a great one about the villages in Florida. It's exactly what you just described.
Yeah.
It's like a whole different world in the middle of Florida. But I think what's interesting though, and you touched on like creating a large campus to provide everything because, you're in a rural area. That that's great for, a younger, older adult, right? But when you get to the point where accessibility is an issue, you do have to look at the community that you're actually moving into and the facility, the
Mm-hmm.
building, because getting around the building itself is something to keep in mind. So, for example, our building was built by a famous architect, I.M. Pei, and it was built with this purpose in mind. So, it's not like a repurposed hotel, for example. It was built for older adult living. So, we're very tall and narrow, and our essentially there's 7 to 8 apartments on each floor. So, you don't have to walk a mile to get from your apartment to the elevator.
Right.
That's on purpose. So a lot of the communities in New York are repurposed buildings. So that's also something that families do want to consider when they're, when they're looking for this, sort of next step.
That's a great point. My wife and I just stayed at a hotel in San Francisco, and it was one of the older, more classic hotels. And we got off the elevator, and I swear it took 5 minutes to get to our room. It was like the hall
Amazing.
was so long; it went down and then turned again. And I was just, by the time we got to the room, I was like, "Man, that was a
I know.
walk. That was
I
serious."
know. Imagine being 90 with a
Yeah,
rollator.
yeah, yeah. I can imagine that would be difficult.
Yeah, it's frustrating. So we don't have that issue here, and a lot of people respond very well to that when they're coming on tours and things like that. So
Yeah.
it's a lot easier for the residents.
So how do you tailor your programs and activities to cater to the needs and interests of seniors living in such a bustling urban environment?
We take residents' particular interests
Hmm.
and sort of just integrate them into our programming here. I mean, our activities director, Scott, he's incredible. He's been here for 20 years. He's absolutely remarkable at what he does. I mean, he's a musician himself, so our cultural and musical offerings are, I mean, truly unmatched. We have amazing talent coming through here. He performs himself as well. I mean, we have a choir, we have a theater program. So really, like, it's kind of like an off Broadway situation here. We even call our activity room Carnegie Hall.
That's cool.
Yeah,
That's fun.
it's pretty great.
Operating in Manhattan has got to have its unique set of challenges. Obviously, I'm not maybe not Manhattan, but just a city in general. So, how do you address issues like noise and safety and accessibility to make sure residents feel comfortable and secure? I know one of the challenges you mentioned revolved around e-bike traffic. So,
Yes. Well, I mean, specifically related to the e-bike, e-vehicle situation. I mean, like
hmm
I said, we're on Second Avenue, which is arguably the busiest bike lane in New York City. It's going from north to south, so it's you pretty much have the entire island of Manhattan to travel, down this bike lane. And after COVID, the landscape of the city really did change. Everything here is being delivered by e-vehicle now. We as a city have not caught up in terms of how to regulate this new form of living. And so it is a bit of a challenge because it's kind of a free for all right now. And it's being a cyclist myself, and I also commute to work on, one of those scooters. I see it personally, daily just in my own commute. So I have joined several different advocacy groups to try to figure out a solution and get to the right people who can actually help make change. And it turns out that this is a very political matter at this point. It's beyond like going to your local precinct asking for, a safety guard or something like that. It's gotten really political at this point. I mean, I don't know if you've read up on any of the congestion pricing in Manhattan and all of the commuters from New Jersey or Connecticut having to come into Manhattan for work are, having to pay like double what they used to pay. It's because New York, it seems to be, is trying to go towards more of a ride share
hmm
um, sort of space, and really like all deliveries done on e-vehicles. So there has to be a change that's happening. There needs to be some regulation. And I'm trying to support the community and do my part as the deputy executive director of an assisted living in this neighborhood, because our front yard is essentially, a very busy bike lane. So we're lucky that we're right next to a school that has a crossing guard. So our block does have a crossing guard. So there is a bit of, it feels a little bit more safe on our direct block. But it's a challenge, and it's a challenge all over the city, not just for us. I mean, in this neighborhood alone, there are 4 different assisted livings. So this is something that's not unique to our community. It's just truly in Manhattan in general. So we're going to be hosting some community events, and really, especially this summer, getting the word out and just about this really important issue that needs to be addressed. So it's a big issue. We're working on it. I'm working
yeah.
on it. And luckily we have an amazing board of directors, which is another component I really like about working for this community, is that we have a dedicated and smart and well-connected board of directors who truly care about their position on the board. So that's very helpful when we're trying to tackle these larger issues like this.
Yeah, I would imagine that's a major challenge in terms of safety. I mean, when we were in San Francisco, we had the right of way. We're walking across the road, and all of a sudden, just like two e-bikes just go zipping by, like delivery e-bike, and that was pretty shocking for us. I mean, we see e-bikes all the time here, but it's just not the same thing, as it is in the city. So, I mean, they're everywhere, and you're right. I mean, it was like every road we went down, I mean, there was at least 5 or 6 people on e-bikes delivering something. So
Yeah,
the whole culture has shifted for
totally
sure.
shifted. Definitely.
Yeah.
And it's especially since COVID, it's entirely changed. But I will say that yes, the delivery sort of drivers are definitely a big part of this, but there is nothing more frightening than 100-pound electric city bike driven by some high school kid going in the wrong direction while texting on their cell phone. Like, just plowing
No
towards
hands
it.
on the
No
wheel,
hands,
just
earphones, taking selfies.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But and another thing too that I've learned after joining these advocacy groups is that there is no reportable way on, I guess, whatever forms the police have to fill out to indicate uh, injury or accident by e-vehicle. So
Hmm.
that's something that is very interesting because there's no way to track. There's no way to have this data that we need in order to help change laws. So it goes deep.
Are there other challenges around like noise or accessibility too that are tough to tackle because of the locale being in a city, not necessarily in Manhattan, but just
I don't think so. I mean, I think the people that live here are New Yorkers. I mean, we don't really have people don't typically move to New York after having lived in like the country their entire life. So I think that people here kind of already know what to expect. I mean, we certainly have soundproof windows, and we've taken measures to help isolate the noise outside and things like that. But I mean, it's New York City, so people kind of expect that there's going to be, some sirens and some horns
yeah.
here and there.
Well, I mean, I haven't heard anything this entire interview, so clearly
Really?
the windows are pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, good. Well, that's good to know. I hear
Yeah.
it all the
Yeah.
time.
um, how does the central location of Carnegie East House affect the social dynamics of your residents, like particularly in terms of like visits from family and friends?
We're right across the street from the Q train, which, if you know
Mm.
New York City, the Q train's one of the newer trains on the east side, but it also connects to all of Midtown and very, very quickly in an expressway. So I mean, I don't live on the east side. I lived on the west side. So I didn't really know about the Q train until I started working here, but it's amazing. You can get anywhere. There's connections to every other line. And then just being that we're on a major cross street, which is 96, the crosstown buses are right here. I mean, you can get anywhere from our block in like no time. And then, of course, there's a lot of the residents know how to use Uber, and my
Hmm.
office is right when you walk in. So when I see some of the residents leaving or playing with their phone, I'm happy to help call them an Uber or hail them a taxi. That's the fun part of the job. That's my favorite part of the job, is being able to hang out and interact with the residents.
Yeah.
In fact, I missed lunchtime today. I didn't get to go up to the dining room, and that's my favorite time to walk around and say hi to everybody.
That's got to be great. So operating as a not for profit. I mean, are you not for profit, nonprofit? How do you typically use the terminology? Is it one and the same?
Well, yeah, I think it's one and the same. I mean, in fact, I've actually not heard it. I only heard it called not for profit until I started working here. But essentially, we're a nonprofit. We were founded 158 years ago
Wow.
to provide aging war widows from the Civil War a safe place to live.
Wow.
So it's quite literally ingrained in our mission to provide safe, affordable, sophisticated accommodations for older New Yorkers. So that was our umbrella organization, kind of our sister organization, the James Lennox House. And that was only for women. But then in the 70s, it opened as the James Lennox House for middle income men and women. And so that's totally independent housing with some supportive services here and there,
Hmm.
like social work and a visiting nurse once a week and some programming and things like that. But Carnegie East House was founded in 2002 as sort of the enriched assisted living, answer to that. So we have Carnegie East House, and then we have the James Lennox House, and it's just us, and we're totally a standalone nonprofit. We are, we get a lot of our funding from donations and a yearly benefit gala that we hold. But, and I tell this to people, we really do want to be a community benefit organization. So if you look at the prices that we charge for our private residences, and it's gorgeous, everything's brand new, renovated, it's so much less than any other place in town. And we could raise our prices, but we want to be accessible and affordable for people. We want to be that option for people because honestly, it doesn't exist in Manhattan. It's so expensive here to be an older adult. So we're proud of that.
Yeah, and you have somewhat of a limited scope in terms of the type of resident that you'll admit, and what does that look like?
Our licensure allows
Hmm.
us to have a lot of outside services coming in. But I mean, our typical resident is a think like retiree who's just selling their house of 50 years and needs an additional layer of care, like maybe helping with, activities of daily living, like showering or grooming or dressing, and wants that community feel. And we have a gorgeous culinary program here. And, we've touched on all of our cultural and offerings that we have in our activities and things like that. But, we have all sorts of residents here, but our particular admission and retention standards don't allow us to admit residents who are bedbound. And in that case, when people are bedbound, it's typically an end of life or a nursing home situation anyway. So we do our best to keep our residents here in place and use all of the resources that we have. It's very important to us. We've never discharged anybody because of finances. We also have kind of a spend down program, which is very unique to our community as well, because that's something to consider. You don't know how long you're going to live. So people don't know how much money to save or, what's going to happen when they get to a later stage in life. So we have 20 units in our community that are subsidized by a housing development fund in New York that essentially allows people to, if they're qualified, to get their rent cut in half. And
Wow.
so we advertise that as like a spend down program for our residents. So, if someone lives till they're 100 and they're running out of money, then we apply for that program for them. That's also something that is very unique to our community. No other place in town has that. And we can do that because we're a nonprofit.
I would think just because of life expectancy continuing to increase. I actually just my last interview, he had spoken to someone who said for every 10 years of science, we gain 2 years of life. So it would make sense that there's a lot of older adults who are just not, or they're living longer than they anticipated. Like people were planning for 20 years of retirement, and now it's like they have to plan for 30 years of retirement and sometimes even longer. So and then like what does that look like in terms of productivity for them, right? Because I mean not everybody just wants to be retired now. Like I look at my parents, they're in their mid 70s and they own a printing business, and they can't even fathom the idea of stopping to do that to retire. What would they do? Like my dad's like, why would I retire? I love what I do. And I'm like, as long as you can do it, I mean, by all means do it. I'm not stopping you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, that's interesting. I hear that so much from our residents here. They want to be helpful. They want to be productive.
Yeah.
They want to be a meaningful part of the community, of outside, inside. And so we really do as a staff, we try to integrate the residents into like our daily work lives. I mean, if I need help with some marketing content being put in envelopes, I'm going to call 100-year-old Violet down here and I'm going to put her to work because that's what she wants. She loves to be useful. She loves to stuff goodie bags, and that's like the very special part of this job that I absolutely adore is, helping residents maintain that independence and feeling of being needed.
How does the nonprofit status impact the way you deliver care and services to your residents? Yeah.
Well, I think that We are truly, well, first of all, we're not governed by a huge corporation that's
Hmm.
looking for, very, very specific numbers. I mean, certainly we have census targets and goals, but we treat every resident as an absolute individual. There are no blanket situations or blanket circumstances here. Every person is treated as a unique person and their care is tailored as such. So I think one of the very, very special things that sets us apart here is our executive director, Joe Gervin. He is absolutely dedicated. He and I met several years ago when I was working at a different community as a case manager. And he was visiting a former Carnegie East House resident that had already moved out because they needed a much higher level of care and it was just a different situation. I was so touched that an executive director in New York City would go out of their way to go visit somebody who had already moved out. And that really stuck with me. And so he and I kept in touch for years. I was running a different community at the time. And, then COVID happened. But we remained in touch and it was kind of always our goal to work together because we knew that we were in it for the right reasons and we knew that we would make a good team. And so now here we are. I'm his deputy executive director, and he is a great example of what a leader in this industry should be. I mean, during COVID, it's really important to mention that we did not have a single COVID death here at this community. He actually moved in. He lived here for 2 years on
Oh,
site
wow.
during COVID. So his dedication is unrivaled, and I'm very proud to work alongside him. He's a great guy, and maybe you can, chat with him sometime.
I would love that. I would love
Yeah,
that. I think it's so important when we find people like that to in our lives and in our careers that we make sure to maintain those connections. I've had a few people where back in the day I was like, I know this is someone I'm going to work with at some point in time. And so I've even sent them messages and said, hey, I know like we're not working together right now, but at some point in the future, if an opening, happens in either my space or your space, definitely, let's keep in touch and keep those channels open. And in most cases we've ended up working together. And
absolutely. I'm pretty dedicated to this place. I will say that the combination of all of my experiences in this industry so far has led me to this position. I mean,
yeah,
this
yeah,
position didn't even exist. Joe created it for me. He knew that I deserved this role, and he knew that my, experience would lend well to this sort of new hybrid role that I'm doing. I'm essentially doing all of the marketing and admissions right now on top of my deputy executive director duties. So it's pretty cool. I'm dedicated to this place. I don't see myself leaving anytime soon.
I
We
don't
have
see
some
it
work
either.
to
Yeah,
do.
no, I feel like it would be an evolution of what you're doing now, but within the space you're already in,
Yeah,
like I
absolutely.
I just think what you have, what you've created and what's being built there just sounds so unique, and it would be hard to replicate that or find that somewhere else. So I think it's a really interesting experience.
Yeah, definitely. I've worked for the big profit for-profit places. I've also worked at Medicaid nonprofit communities in New York. So I've had a pretty good taste of all the different kind of options and places that I want to, spend my time working at. And yeah, this is a very unique and special place. And I feel kind of like it's my dream job. So I feel very happy and meant to be where I'm at in my life right now. And I think that that shines through to the families and the residents who come to visit for tours. It's not just me, it's all of our staff. I mean, most of our staff, our frontline staff, has been here for over a decade. Some of our personal care aides have been here for 20 years. People don't leave when they start working here. So I think that speaks volumes about the sort of energy of our community and, how we treat each other as family.
Oh, for sure. That's like the number one issue in most communities that are struggling is staff turnover. So I think like longevity is huge. We might have already answered this, but I was just thinking from the residents' perspective, not so much from like an operational perspective, but having a nonprofit status, Carnegie's nonprofit status. How does that help in shaping community engagement and the overall experience for the residents? What's different about their experience being part of a nonprofit?
I think the individual approach to their
Mm-hmm.
care. It's not, we don't have these blanket levels of, tiered services that a lot of the places have. Our program is all inclusive. You pay your rent for the month, and that includes everything that we provide. We're not, adding points for different activities of daily living and, fluctuating cost based on that. It's important for us, for our residents, to feel comfortable and at home here in our community. Actually, we're thinking of a tagline right now, because I think we're going to try to create a video spot for a local network, because really we've been a hidden gem at this point, and really we're just trying to increase visibility about our community, because it really is a gem. So we're thinking of a tagline right now, and we are thinking about maybe "Our house is your home," and that's exactly how we want the residents to feel. So I
I
think
love
that,
that.
yeah, I don't know. We're working on it. We might even have our activity director, Scott, who's a musician, create a jingle for us.
Yeah, get
So
everybody involved. It'll be
yes,
more
thank you.
authentic that way.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like, we
Yeah.
won't have actors. It'll be our staff on the spot. And yeah, it'll definitely be very authentic.
Yeah. So my last question for you, I think, is just in terms of future planning, looking ahead, how do you plan to evolve the offerings at Carnegie East to keep pace with changes in the city and the evolving needs of your residents?
That's a great question. We're constantly looking to improve our amenities. I just actually put together a huge proposal for our executive director and the board to review, basically on how to break through admission barriers and break through barriers just in general. So, it's definitely a work in progress, and we're constantly looking to make sure that our community is, able to rival other communities, but essentially we really want it just to be the right fit for the individual. So that's not something that will ever change about our process. Truly everything is, based on the individual, but, we are looking into expanding, our space and creating a little bit more of a, we're going to be building a bigger gym, and we have a gorgeous rooftop patio too. So that's something that we're constantly improving as well. Now that it's
Mm-hmm.
finally warm outside, we have our gardening, and we actually have a garden to table concept in our dining program. So we have a garden here that chef actually uses
Oh,
to,
that's so cool.
yeah, it's amazing. Our culinary program here is the best in the city, I would say. I've worked at many other places, and chef here has so much pride in his work, and his team is so on top of it, and they're willing to accommodate residents' tastes and desires. So it's amazing, and I eat here every day. The food's delicious. So, and that's an important part for people. I mean, food brings us together. Dining experiences bring us together. And so we're really proud of our culinary program here.
That's a huge piece of it. I would think if I was living somewhere and knew that, my meals were provided, that I would enjoy the food first and foremost. I'm definitely a foodie, so
Yeah,
that would be a big one for me.
definitely. And, even if, so like we had a Japanese couple that came for our respite program, actually, and they're moving back, as I said, after they saw their house, but
Mm-hmm.
they did a whole welcome dinner of all these different styles of Japanese food. And, the residents were able to kind of get to know them better through food. So it's pretty cool.
They did the welcome dinner?
So,
Or
well, they offered kind of suggestions, but chef prepared a Japanese welcome dinner
oh,
for
very
all of the
cool.
residents, and that was, kind of used as like an icebreaker on, talking about like their culture, and it was a really great way to welcome them into our community.
That's really nice. That's
Yeah,
really nice.
yeah, it was
Great.
good. Yeah.
All right. Well, as we wrap up our conversation, Angela, I'm sure many of our listeners would love to keep the dialogue going and perhaps learn even more from your vast experience and more about the nonprofit angle when it comes to assisted living. So could you share the best ways for them to connect with you and continue this conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on LinkedIn, Angela DeWood. I think there's only one of me. So you can find me that way. And you can email me. You can get me directly through the info at Carnegie East. enriched.org website, or my personal email, which I'm sure you could probably share somehow. But LinkedIn is definitely a great way to get a hold of me.
Okay.
That's
Yeah, I'll
actually
put
how
all that.
we met. Yeah, we met on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'll put all that in the show notes so that everybody
Okay.
can stay connected with you. Yeah, stopping by for a tour. Would they schedule that with you?
Yes, I'm doing most of the tours right now. We're actually having a little bit of a summer special as well. So this would be a great time to get into our community. We've actually had 7 admissions in the last month.
Wow.
I've been very busy. We're in a rebuilding period from COVID right now, like every other place is. So it's going to take time, but the trajectory is looking very positive for us right now. There's no shortage of interest in our community. It's about finding the right fit for, the resident.
Thank you so much. So what a remarkable conversation. I'd like to extend a huge thank you to Angela DeWood for joining us today and sharing such invaluable insights into creating unique experiences in assisted living. It's clear that Angela and the team at Carnegie East House are at the forefront of transforming how we think about living environments for older adults. For those inspired by today's episode, looking to connect with Angela or learn more about the innovative approaches at Carnegie East House, be sure to visit their website, carnegieeast.org, or reach out to her directly on LinkedIn, and I'll provide the link to that in the show notes. As always, if you're seeking to elevate your own senior living community, remember CCR Growth is here to guide you through your marketing, sales, and operational challenges. I'm Jerry Vinci, CEO of CCR Growth, thanking you for joining us on From Leads to Leases, where we're giving you all of these great senior living industry insights for free and asking nothing in return other than for you to like, subscribe, and share this episode with anyone who might find it useful. I'm truly grateful for your time and attention. Until next time, lead with strategy and with heart. Chat with you again soon. Thanks for tuning in. Explore more at ccrgrowth.com. At CCR Growth, we've developed the Senior Growth Innovation Suite to unlock an additional $1.5 million and up in revenue per senior living community within a year. We specialize in generating quality leads, expediting sales, and reducing acquisition costs. Let's connect soon.